In Argentina, President Alberto Fernandez opened the 7th summit of heads of states and government of CELAC, calling for unity and welcoming Brazil to the regional bloc. Thousands of Peruvians will carry out a new Great National March demanding the resignation of President Boluarte. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius expressly encouraged NATO partner countries to train Ukrainian forces on the use of leopard tanks. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The 7th Summit of Heads of States and Government of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, is underway in Argentina, marked by an integrationist agenda and regional unity. The forum, taking place at the Sheraton Buenos Aires Hotel, is headed by the Argentinian head of state, Alberto Fernandez, in his role as pro tempore president of the regional mechanism. For the first time in CELAC's history, presidents and representatives of all 33 nations that make up the forum are present at the event. This 7th session of the regional summit is marked by the return of Brazil to the bloc after former President Jair Bolsonaro suspended its participation in 2020. Among the main points to be discussed by the presidents and representatives of the member nations are the consolidation of the region as a space of unity in diversity and its integration with higher levels of inclusion and development. Addressing the heads of states and government present at the 7th CELAC summit, Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez stressed the need to undertake a process leading to equality and social justice in the member nations.
Because, along with Mexico, we have created a support fund to provide assistance to the Caribbean in order for it to deal with the problems arising out of climate change. And then there's the region's problems, which we are all very well aware of. We live in the most unequal continent in the world, and once and for all, we must undertake a process leading to equality and social justice in our nations.
Holding the president pro tempore of the regional community since January 2022, the Argentinian head of state emphasized his main objective while occupying this position was to take the voice of Latin America and the Caribbean to the international arena.
To demand that our nations be heard. And I took the voice of Latin America to the international summits, also calling for the end of the blockade that Latin American countries still suffer. Blockades and embargoes are very perverse methods that sanction not governments, but the people of countries. So we can't continue to allow that to happen.
Meanwhile, Argentinian Minister of Foreign Affairs Santiago Cafiero presented his country's pro tempore presidency report describing the actions taken during 2022.
Our community maintains that integration is a key value to build a zone of peace, a territory with opportunities for development based on solidarity across Latin America and the Caribbean. This is why the work plan we put together as presidency pro tempore included 5 pillars, 5 thematic pillars, and over 70 innovative activities.
Describing the 5 pillars of Argentina's pro tempore presidency, its Minister of Foreign Affairs began explaining the post-pandemic socio-economic and productive recovery pillar.
I will be describing are the ones that guided Argentina's presidency pro tempore in 2022. First, post-pandemic social, economic, and productive recovery in order to promote the reconstruction of the region. Pillars.
In Peru, students, indigenous farmers, and other sectors of the Peruvian society will hold on Tuesday a great national march in Plaza 2 de Mayo to demand the resignation of President Boluarte. Thousands of Peruvians will carry out a new great national march demanding the resignation of the president, whom they hold responsible for the repression of the protest that has left at least 62 people dead. The mobilization in the capital Lima will be also done in the main cities of the South American country. The president of the Regional Youth Assembly of Cusco, Mauro Marucho, interviewed by TeleSUR, denounced that police repression is becoming more and more acute, as 62 people have been killed by projectile impacts at the national level. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States will meet virtually with Peruvian President Dina Boluarte. The session takes place a few days after a rapporteur from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights affirmed that protests in the countries were a scene for violence. In Buenos Aires, the presidents of Argentina and Brazil, Alberto Fernandez and Lula da Silva, regretted in a joint statement the violent repression in Peru. Both expressed their concern about prolonged preventive imprisonment of former President Pedro Castillo. Since the ousting of former President Pedro Castillo, the brutal repression unleashed against demonstrators demanding general elections has so far killed over 60 civilians. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at TeleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, announced on Monday that his country had paid off the $800 million sovereign debt in Eurobonds acquired by the government of Francisco Flores. The Minister of Finance, Alejandro Zelaya, confirmed the announcement and stressed that the nation complies with its debt obligations. Last year, several rating agencies warned of the credit risk faced by El Salvador due to two financial commitments. The first for the debt paid off this Monday with a maturity date of January 24th, and the second for a similar sovereign credit whose expiration date is in 2025. The Presidential Commissioner for Strategic Projects, Christian Flores, highlighted that the country maintains a balanced and compliant tax model, which has allowed the government to start buying back bonds, consolidating its economy. Former Guatemalan President Álvaro Colom, who ruled the country between 2008 and 2012, died on Monday at the age of 71 after suffering from cancer, as confirmed by the bench that brought him to power, the National Unity of Hope. The former Minister of the Interior, Carlos Menocal, released the news while stating to be sorry for his passing and joining in praying for his eternal rest. For his part, the current Guatemalan head of state, Alejandro Giammattei, indicated that he also regrets the sensitive death of the former president. According to international media, the former president had suffered from esophageal cancer for several years, which was disclosed in December 2020. In the last days of his life, Colom left the hospital to receive treatment at his home. On Monday in the United States, 7 people were killed in 2 related shootings in a California coastal community south of San Francisco. According to San Mateo County Sheriff Christina Corpus, 4 people were found dead and a 5th was injured from gunshot wounds at one location, while 3 others were found dead at another site several miles away. The shootings occurred on the outskirts of Half Moon Bay, a city about 48 kilometers south of San Francisco. Officers arrested 67-year-old Chun-Li Shao in connection with the shootings after he was found in his car outside the city's sheriff's station. Authorities believe Shao is a worker at one of the facilities and that the victims were his co-workers. On Tuesday in France, one of the busiest stations in Paris, Gare de l'Est, suffered a fire that led to the shutdown of train traffic due to the sabotage of cables, said the state-owned operator SNCF. The head of the company's regional network, Anne-Marie Palmier, described the incident as a deliberate act of vandalism. She also stressed that all train traffic on Tuesday was cancelled. The operator, SNCF, for its part, filed a complaint with the Paris police. Meanwhile, the French Minister of Transport, Clément Beaune, said that acts of vandalism against the wiring are quite frequent and asserted that these actions must be severely punished for the impact they have on people's daily lives. On Tuesday, during a joint press conference with NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius expressly encouraged partner countries to train Ukrainian forces on the use of leopard tanks. In addition to the German Defense Minister's request to train Ukrainian troops in the use of these tanks, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg also predicted that a decision on their delivery would be made soon. Germany has been under intense international pressure in recent weeks to allow the export to Ukraine of powerful German-made leopard tanks. Defense Minister Pistorius indicated on Tuesday that a decision could be imminent. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić said on Monday that Europe is de facto at war, even if it does not want to admit it, and said that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has become one of the biggest problems for Belgrade. The Serbian president said that the hostilities in Ukraine have put Belgrade on everyone's radar because of its refusal to impose sanctions against Russia. The Serbian president also expressed his concern that there is no longer a rational approach to solving the problem. The West has its own agenda, which is the defeat of Russia, and in that agenda it will kill everything that stands in the way, he added. In Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky replaced his cabinet and banned former officials from leaving the country in order to control high corruption rates. After the announcement of this measure, the presidential office deputy head, Kyrylo Tymoshenko, confirmed his resignation in a letter. Tymoshenko is expected to be replaced by Oleksiy Kuleba, the current head of Kiev's regional military district. In the next few hours, the heads of the military and civil administrations of the Sumy, Dnipro, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions could also resign from their posts. Also, Ukrainian officials will not be allowed to travel abroad if trip is not justified. Also in Ukraine, a preliminary expertise report points to pilot error as the cause of the January 18th helicopter crash that killed the country's interior minister, Denis Monatysky. Another 13 people died in that crash, including Ukraine's first deputy interior minister, Evgeny Enin. According to the report, the pilot, in order to avoid a possible missile strike, flew too low and made a wrong turn when trying to avoid colliding with a tall building at the last minute. Because of fog-proof visibility, beacons for signaling fixed obstacles on high-rise buildings had been disabled. We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. In South Africa, Russia's Foreign Affairs Minister Sergei Lavrov spoke of the main difference between NATO and the BRICS in a meeting with his counterpart from Swatini. Lavrov said that the BRICS is a new type of association that is not based on the master-slave principle. He said it is not a structure in which a command is given and everyone accepted, as is the case now with NATO. Lavrov and Minister Tuli Ladla met to discuss issues of bilateral interest, including economic and military cooperation, and they made a request to the United Nations so that withheld export of Russian fertilizers can reach the Eswatini Kingdom. According to a report by Afghanistan's disaster ministry, 126 people have died in the country over the last few weeks due to record low temperatures of -34 degrees Celsius. The deaths occurred in 24 provinces, mostly due to hypothermia and carbon monoxide poisoning. Many families have resorted to burning plastic and paper to heat their homes, which has led to carbon monoxide inhalations. During the recent storms, over 50 houses suffered serious structural damage or were completely destroyed, and many roads had to be closed. Authorities said the extreme low temperatures experienced over the last weeks had not occurred in Afghanistan in over 2 decades. On Monday, a group of Palestinian residents demonstrated against Israeli plans to forward with the demolition of the Bedouin village of Khan al-Hamar, located on the outskirts of Jerusalem. Palestinian citizens protest against threats by Israeli politicians to demolish the Bedouin village of Khan al-Hamar on the outskirts, where about 180 people live. For its part, the Israeli government assured that the village was built without the necessary permissions. However, the Palestinian population affirms that the authorities make it difficult for them to obtain construction permits. International organizations described the efforts to remove the residents of the village as a ruthless, discriminatory, and illegal expulsion.
Of the population of Khan al-Ahmar will mean the destruction of the land. There are thousands of dunams that will be seized by the Israelis and turned by the Israeli occupation into military zones and settlements in which the settlers will use as they please. The eviction and demolishment of Khan al-Ahmar is just as important as the issue of Jerusalem. The issue of Khan al-Ahmar is just the beginning. Other communities have been targeted as well. More than 15 communities here at the eastern gate of our capital, Jerusalem, were targeted. This is an extreme right-wing government in the very sense of the word. It was based on partisan understandings, the most important of which is the expansion of settlements and the legalization of illegal outposts, in addition to the establishment of new outposts.
On Monday, Moroccan lawmakers voted unanimously to review ties with the European Parliament, accusing it of meddling after a resolution that urged the kingdom to respect press freedom. Members of both houses of Morocco's parliament met in the capital Rabat for a joint session in response to the non-binding European text adopted on Thursday. In a statement after their session, the Moroccan legislators called the European resolution an unacceptable attack against the sovereignty, dignity, and independence of judicial institutions in the kingdom. As a result, Morocco's parliament decided to reconsider its relations with the European Parliament and submit them for an overall evaluation, according to Rachid Talbi Alami, spokesperson of the House of Representatives.
As a result, both houses of parliament have decided starting today to review their relations with the European Parliament and submit them to an overall assessment to make appropriate and meaningful decisions.
We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.